Hello. What if there's a way we could fix our economy, help our environment, and improve working conditions around the world? What if buying local could do that? Here are a few reasons why my family thinks it can. You're probably wondering what in the world I'm doing with a shovel, and what does it have to do with the all-American home and buying local? Well, I can tell you in a few minutes, but first I got a couple questions for you. Do we make anything in this country anymore? Some of my peers have suggested that we make 3, 4, or 5% of the world's stuff. Well, it's not true. We make a lot more. We make 21% of everything on the planet. That's a lot of stuff. Take a look at this graph. I hope. It shows industrial production over the last 40 years. Even though we've lost a lot of manufacturing jobs, it continues to go up, except for the recessions. So we make a lot of stuff. So the shovel. Have you ever heard of Ames Manufacturing or Craftsman Tools? Most of us have. In 1774, Ames started making these shovels, and Abraham Lincoln personally asked John Ames to make shovels for the Union War effort. And then Ames made shovels for World War I, World War II. They made them for the Vietnam War, and also Hoover Dam and Mount Rushmore. Not to mention, a lot of people have these in their garage. So at some point, they offshored and started making their shovels in China. Well, they came back, and this shovel was made in Lewiston, Pennsylvania. And I want to know, why did they come back? So I called their national marketing director, and he told me the labor costs are going up, regulations are going up, quality control is difficult, shipping is going up, and not to mention, Americans are asking for local products. Does anyone know where their shoes are made? The ones you're wearing right now. Well, a year ago, I had no idea where I was buying my shoes. And a while back, my wife bought a pair of shoes online. Turns out they came from overseas somewhere, I don't know where, and it showed up our doorstep. And about the only GDP involved in that transaction in this country was shipping, maybe a few other things. In the end, she ended up sending them back. Well, the shoes I'm wearing came from Red Wing Shoes in Red Wing, Minnesota. Now take a look at the stuff that's involved in making this shoe. Not only do they make their laces, their soles, their leather boot, they get all the raw materials here. They also tan their leather. They raise their cattle. They own the ranches. So which one would you choose? I think I'd choose the Red Wing shoes. But what does all this stuff mean? What does buying local really add up to? How do you quantify this idea? If every American family reallocated 5%, just 5% of their spending from foreign to domestic products, we'd add over 3 million American jobs. Imagine if we did 10%. Does anyone care? These guys have reported on it. That's interesting. I've had letters from emails and phone calls from manufacturers, from homeowners, from builders, and a bunch of politicians. But here is by far my favorite letter. A young man, Connor, he's 7 years old. He wrote me a letter, and he says, "Thank you for doing this. When I go home, when I go shopping, I look for toys that are made in America. I can't find anything. So thank you for doing this." That's a neat letter. Are there any reasons not to do this? Some people have suggested that this is protectionist or nationalistic or even partisan. Well, it's none of those things. When we started this project, a gentleman from the BBC called me. He asked me exactly that. Isn't this protectionist? Aren't we talking about adding tariffs, damaging world economies? So I asked him, when you go home, do you buy local? And he said, of course I do. Well, that's what I'm talking about. I don't care if you're in London or San Francisco or Sydney or Beijing. I think buying local makes sense. We make our purchasing decisions mostly through an economic or fiscal lens. A lot of us don't think about the social and environmental consequences of what we buy. Take a look at this picture. It's a little bit dark, but the truth is we don't do this anymore. And this is not the Industrial Revolution. This is China today. So I have a little example. In America, we get about 45% of our electricity from coal. A lot of us care about CO2 production. Get a lot of CO2 out of coal. Well, in India, they get about 70% of their electricity from coal, and in China, they get about 80% of their electricity from coal. We got to decide where we want to buy our products from. You got to remember, when anyone's polluting the air anywhere, it's really our air. Take a look at this graph. China and India, they create about 4 times as much environmental damage as we do. Now, we're not perfect, but we do a lot less damage. I don't have time to talk about the social issues, but we know they're there. But we don't see a whole lot of that stuff here. And we don't dump industrial waste into our waterways and our lakes anymore. So whether you care about social, environmental, or economic issues, buying local makes sense to us anyways. So here's our challenge. If every American reallocated just 5% of their spending to American-made product or local products, we create 3 million jobs. This is also a multi-generational cause. My son Jake, without him, this never would have happened. It's equally his project. So the All-American Home has reinforced for us that buying locally is really meaningful. And we hope you'll join us. Thank you.